Hi guys, my name's Ian and I'm the head coach at TriClub, and I'm here today with Jez Cox. Now, Jez has had an illustrious career in sport, particularly in cycling and in duathlon, and he's gone on to do some presenting for Eurosport and various other areas as well. So welcome, Jez.
Hello, nice to be chatting with you, Ian. Great to hear what you've been up to recently. So nice to be part of the early wave of people we're chatting to.
Yeah. No, thanks very much for joining us. So this is a series on sport and mental health. And what I'd like to do to start with is to dive in and just find out who you are. Who is Jez Cox, and what's your story in sport?
Yeah, sure. I'm very lucky, Ian, to kind of live a life that's been really shaped by sport. It's a real blessing for me. I grew up in West London. I'm 42 years of age now, and I grew up in West London. Yeah, I'm an old man. I'm an old boy.
You don't look
anyway, I grew up in West London, and kind of throughout my teens, I had a bit of a, towards my late teens, I had a decision to make between acting and cycling, oddly enough, because I spent a lot of time training as an actor and going on tour and kind of missing quite a lot of my teenage years off on tour and doing things like that. And I got to sort of the age of 18, 19 and decided that actually it was my cycling I really wanted to focus on. And was very lucky to then go quite quickly from out of the junior ranks into racing at elite level, and then doing it full time eventually, moving to France, racing for a couple of different teams, and kind of living the life of full-time athlete, making no money, absolute, days of my life, absolutely brilliant time. Met my wife during that time, Leda, who was just starting out as a pro cyclist. Actually, she literally, I think she turned pro the day after we got married, and we're both Christians, so we got married pretty quickly. And we literally met on the bike, and we had fantastic sort of. We've been married nearly 18 years now, so we had a long time where we were both away a lot, racing and traveling and coming back to each other, and we'd often be away from each other for sort of 6 months at a time, and then come back and have spent 6 months together and then 6 months apart. It was a very unusual life. And now, kind of post elite sport, we're both settled down and have 2 little children, which we sort of delayed, rolled the dice lots of times. We're very lucky. We've got a gorgeous boy and a little girl. And we're very lucky, really, to still be living our lives involved with the sport that we love as well. We run a cycling academy together for junior riders, and that's like a full-time gig. Leda's retrained as a physio since she had to retire from cycling. And I'm very lucky, as you mentioned at the beginning, now to spend a lot of my time getting paid to talk about cycling. I do the race commentary for the Tour of Britain Women's Tour series. I did the finish line commentary last year as well for the World Championships in Yorkshire. So yeah, I'm lucky. You know what it's like. You're if you get to do what you love, it's a blessing. If you get to talk about doing what you love and you get paid for it, it's like it's too good to be true. So yeah, I'm really lucky. I'm really lucky to still be involved with the sport that I love. And as you mentioned, I had a big involvement with duathlon as well, which is as we both know, the greatest sport known to man. Full stop. It's not an Olympic sport yet, but no, I had a long time competing in duathlon, and it's such a great sport with really great national structure and world structure, and had a fantastic time. Of course, made absolutely no money out of it, just enjoyed it and had a great time racing and improving. And during that time, I started coaching more as well. So I was coaching more and then team managing. Started out at British Triathlon, managing Great Britain teams in the age group level, and then stepped up to managing elite teams for them at World Championships, long distance, cross triathlon, and I'm still involved now with sort of mentoring on the elite side as well, and advising and guiding the elite teams as well. So yeah, I'm very lucky to have a kind of feet in 2 camps there, heavily in cycling and in triathlon as well. Lucky boy.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds incredible. And you mentioned your time as a pro cyclist and a duathlete, where I believe you had, was it 81 wins and 50 second places? Yeah. So what were the highlights and the lowlights of this?
You know, actually, when you mention it like that, I tell you what it is. I think my two kind of stints of racing at that level in those two different sports kind of highlight where it's at. So, in other words, cycling is not a sport. Road racing in particular is not a sport that necessarily rewards the best athletes because there's so much else at play: tactics, teams, weather, technical stuff, loads of stuff like that. When you go into something like duathlon, triathlon, maybe things like time trialing, maybe it's a much purer sport in that the best athlete will win. And I'm not necessarily saying I was the best athlete by any means. To win 81 races, you have to race an awful lot. I think,
yeah, you did.
And I did. You know, I think in a way, when I started doing duathlon, I raced far more than pretty much any other athlete, which is why I probably won more races than any other athlete, because I was coming from a background in cycling where for 3 seasons I rode somewhere between 75 and 85 races in a year, race days in a year. So that's normal. Yeah. So then when I started doing duathlon, I hooked up with other duathletes and started, you know, racing as an elite and mixing with, and I was like, how many times did you race last year? And they'll say 10, maybe 8. I was like, what the heck? What? What's the point in doing it? So the only problem is multi-sport is very expensive. So I was lucky enough to have very generous sponsors who would pay for me to do races. But yeah, so I enjoyed racing a lot and traveling a lot, and I think although I won 81 races, I came second 50 times as well. And I always tell people I learned a lot more from coming second 50 times than I did from winning. You don't learn anything from winning.
And what did you learn from those? Sorry, what did you learn from those 50 times?
Oh wow! Some of it was mistakes, and some of it was overcoming kind of mental hurdles in self-belief. So, you know, I think, unfortunately, people say winning is a habit. I think actually it can be a real problem, because if you get used to winning, and some of those races, I mean, I did everything and anything. If it was called a duathlon, I did it. Whether it was a world championship, a World Cup, a continental race, local, I did everything, including like little local duathlons, because I just love racing duathlons. So I did a bit of everything. Right. So some of those races I won by like 10 minutes. And that sounds awesome. It's not. It's just that I was an elite athlete competing against people, many of whom were just doing it for the first time. You know, but you turn up, you do it, and it's like, and I hang around and encourage people and chat to people afterwards and that kind of thing. So you learn nothing from that. It's really just a physical workout. And then the next day or the next week, I might go and do an event where there's 2 or 3 other athletes who are really pushing it. And then you have to go, crikey, when was the last time this happened? I've got to get my head around this and figure out how I'm going to beat these people. Yeah. And that is something you have to train for, something you have to get used to. And I think there's definitely lots of occasions in those 50 where I've seen the gap opening up and gone, and I've questioned whether I want it enough or whatever, and you give it away, you know. So you definitely, but that makes you stronger and like, no, I'm not going to let that happen next time. that definitely happens.
Yeah, it definitely develops a mental resilience. That's from my one win that I've had, and that was at a novice triathlon after coming back from an operation to see if I could just run off the bike. So I kind of understand that feeling from that one race.
Yeah, you do. And it's it's a tricky thing finding the right level of competition. There are different. Don't get me wrong, right? There are some guys who wouldn't do what I did. They would only do top level events and that's it. But I just love racing, and my attitude was, if there's a race, I can get to it, I'll just do it, you know. And sometimes actually some of the smaller events, you would find another, you know, really top competitor would turn up, and suddenly the 2 of you or 3 of you or 4 of you or sometimes more would have a really good ding dong, you know, and go after it. And you'd come away thinking, do you know what, that was bloody brilliant, you know. So yeah, that's a really big tip from me, honestly, particularly to the multi-sport athletes. Don't be seduced by the adverts you see in the tri-mags and online, because the adverts are from commercial companies who are trying to make money out of you. dig into the calendar and find the little events in the middle of nowhere, because sometimes they're the best events, and you'll meet very, much more chilled out people who aren't all tense because they haven't paid hundreds of pounds to do it. They've paid £30 to do it, and they're enjoying themselves. And often you'll find they're really good courses run by lovely people. Multi-sport athletes can definitely race more and seek out more local events that are club run. 100%. I still think I really bang that drum all the time. I don't bang it enough nowadays, but I should. Yeah, absolutely.
No, that's really great. Do you mind if I ask you a question that's a little bit off piece from what? So with the Ironman VR series that's coming out, I don't know if you've seen that, but it's basically a virtual race series that they've launched, which is coming out from left, right, and centre from all different companies at the minute, and them in particular. And they're obviously charging for these races, and they're asking people to do, say, 5K on the bike, 5K on the run, 90K on the bike, and then a half marathon. Now, there's maybe a question around the responsibility of them during COVID times of encouraging people to race long and go hard as well, which is going to suppress people's immune systems. But how would you regulate something like the Ironman VR series? Do you have any thoughts around that?
It's very difficult. I mean, I am very old-fashioned. This is going to show my age. I am properly. So I've always been, look, if you can do it outside, why the heck are you sweating in the corner of your bedroom, trying to beat other athletes who are also not going outside? This is a total game changer, right? So I've been quite, previously I was asked to commentate on some online racing for particularly cycling stuff. And I'd actually said, listen, guys, I'm not going to do it because it's sort of against my integrity, because I want to be seen to be sticking to the true core of the sport. We are now in totally different times where racing like this is it, and actually I am being gradually converted. I'm seeing it in a way that it can never replace, our traditional outdoor version of our sport. In terms of the impact, I guess, as you mentioned about the suppression of the immune system and what have you, it's very difficult, isn't it? So I'm speaking as someone so my wife and I, we've got two little children, as I say, we are all at home. We're all at home all the time at the moment. We're taking it in turns, the two of us, to go out and get our bit of exercise during the day. And like today, I must admit, I went out and I knew I had an hour and a half free while the kids were doing some stuff in our garden. And I thought I'll go out and see if I can try and rack up a kilometre of vertical climbing in an hour and a half. So I just had a little challenge. It was just literally like, and that's a bit silly, but it was just like, I'm just going to go and just do it on my bike, have some fun and see how it goes. I didn't make it. Actually, I only made 700. I couldn't string together enough hills in that time. But I was pushing myself hard, okay?
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. For a period of time afterwards, your immune system is suppressed. The effort you're talking about, the virtual Ironman stuff indoors, is a really big effort. I don't know. I don't really have an opinion on it, because I guess I'm slightly of the opinion that the virus itself and its effect is a pretty big thing, and that's the understatement of the century, isn't it? I think if we're all sensible, we stick to the rules that are given to us, and we operate within those rules, and we don't do stupid things, then I think we are doing everything we can do. It doesn't mean we're going to necessarily beat it. I think this whole talk about we can beat this, if one person dies, we haven't beaten it, right? We can get through it. And I'm not making a personal statement on coronavirus, but it's if we're all doing our individual bit and sticking within the rules, then I think that's what you can do. I think so. For instance, I give an example. There are some. The current environment is creating an opportunity, I think, for people to do extreme and ridiculous things. But one of the cyclists in my cycling academy at the moment, the academy that Leda and I run is a full-time academy. So we train with the riders every single day. They live where we are. Most of them live where we are in St Albans. We meet them every morning at 9:15 and we go training together. We train together every day. We do all their strength and conditioning and all the rest of it. That's how we operate normally. And it's based out of a college in St Albans called Oaklands College. Of course, the college is shut. They've all dispersed to where they live from all around the country, the athletes, and we're coaching them remotely and looking after them remotely. So we are constantly in contact with them and talking to them and encouraging. Today, they were all out individually by themselves, of course, doing Strava challenges that we'd set them on the road, right? It's most of the road cyclists. But one of them last week announced, I won't name him, but he announced that he wanted to try and do 24 hours straight on his turbo in his bedroom on one of the online platforms. So not as a race, but just something that people could follow and chip into and this kind of thing. Now he's just turned 17 years of age. And I obviously my attitude was like, okay, I'm not going to encourage you to do this, but I think but if you want to do it and it's keeping you in love with the sport and you do it safely and sensibly, then go for it. If you see what I mean. So I think within those boundaries, if people are doing things, particularly if it's in the confines of their own home, if it's not going to burn them out and it's going to keep people engaged with the sport and enjoying themselves, then that's great. Because otherwise, the flip side is I say to these teenagers, and it might be people watching this right now, plan ahead, try and think about when your next race will be. Maybe think about it being in August or September, or maybe there's something in late July. There is just no point in having those kind of conversations, but there isn't, because you are creating kind of either false hope or false goals that you then try and build towards. And I think those kind of conversations are futile because we just don't know how soon we might return to normality or how far in the future it would be. So I do think things like this online stuff is probably quite a good way of refocusing on the now and enjoying themselves. But I think that for me is what it has to be. It's got to be enjoyable. And I know 24 hours straight on a turbo in your bedroom doesn't sound enjoyable. For some people it is. Some people it actually is. And it's very easy.
I can't think of anything worse.
I know. Well, same here. But I think for some people that might be the thing which goes, I've really challenged myself there and I feel better for it. And it keeps them going. Look, we know that what's going on at the moment across the world is far bigger than sport. It's when we come to talk about, if I talk about, I've been doing some podcast stuff to do with cycling and just dealing with our athletes on a daily basis as a coach as well. You do strip it back and go, do you know what? We are just talking about trying to ride faster, or in the case of triathlon, trying to run faster and swim. But it's not life and death. It's not as serious as other things we're grappling with right now. So it does help people to put it into perspective. But it can be a really hard time. I don't know. I can't speak for anyone else, but I know there's been periods in my competing and training life, and even now, where if I was honest with myself, I would definitely say that I'm addicted to training. No doubt about it. I think most people, I think a lot of people ignore it or deny it or wouldn't realize it. But some people will say, if I don't train for a couple of days, I get a bit groggy. I feel a bit moody. Actually, underneath that is an addiction to endorphins, to training. For some people, it's like a main means of controlling things in their lives. And actually, when that's kind of clamped down on, it can be really, really tough for people to find a new normal, because we are, I think, increasingly now surrounded by people who've been doing this a while. If you went back 10, 15 years ago, if you went back 15 years ago in triathlon, you'd be surrounded by complete loads of newbies. Well, the triathlon curve has peaked and has flattened out, and now there's lots of those newbies are still doing it now, or they found their way into cycling or what have you. And it's much the same now in cycling as well. The bubble has not so much burst, but the bubble is now well formed and pleased with itself. And I don't know. I think there's kind of two different things going on here. When I look outside, I am witnessing, certainly where I am in Hertfordshire, thankfully sensible people who are actually going well out of their way to stay away from each other. But I am witnessing what I think is the biggest boost in public health focused outdoor exercise in hundreds of years.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Absolutely no doubt about it. Once you strip things back, you simplify life, and restrict people to be the only things they can do is go essential shopping and go for exercise. I'm seeing people out there running and cycling who are definitely not runners and cyclists.
Yeah,
but they might be in 6 months' time. you don't, they say, don't they, you don't know how much you needed something till the threat of it being taken away was there. And I think for some people, it's really inspiring, really inspiring. As long as people stay within the rules. I'm not saying stay safe, because there's no such thing as safe. There's only safer, right? But if we stick within the guidelines that we're given, and I know there's loads of opinion out there on the internet, but if we stick within the guidelines that we are given by the government, in terms of timing and in terms of distancing and all the rest of it, then I personally think there is some good to come out of this at that level.
Yeah. No, I mean, I totally agree with you. And, even down, so I live in Loughborough, and down the Loughborough Canal, you're seeing people that aren't your traditional people that would be outside doing exercise, actually getting out, with their households, with their families, and engaging. And even if it's just walking, jogging, going out cycling and so on, and engaging in that process. And it's great to see people getting themselves healthier, really. So I was just wondering, during this time, during the coronavirus, what is it that you're doing to keep occupied? Obviously, you've got your coaching around the country, but is there anything else that's sort of keeping you physically and mentally fresh?
Yeah. I'll tell you what, Ian, I don't need to worry about staying occupied, because I have a 5-year-old girl and a 3-year-old boy, and they're nuts. Wow. My boy in particular is he's nuts. He's just absolutely full of energy. So I don't have 2 seconds to myself all day, and neither does my wife later. Literally, we don't. They just wake up at 6:15 every morning, and they're on it all day. So really, if I'm honest, the vast majority of my time is spent keeping them happy, stopping them fighting, finding things to do. They're very outdoorsy kids as well. So, they want to be out playing. And so every day we take them out for their exercise. And they're into, thankfully, doing quite big walks. Even our 3-year-old lad, he'll go and do a big walk. We'll walk as far away from other people as possible from home. We're very lucky where we live. We're right on the edge of St Albans. We can walk across, farmland and into a forest and get lost in there and do a little bit of exploring. So for me, it's really nice outdoor time. And I think another thing I found myself doing, and I think this is a really good thing, is forcing myself to stop and smell the flowers a bit. And I don't just mean physically at this time of year. I mean actually just savoring things, because not only because you've got the time to do so, but because it helps to spread things out. Like for instance, in amongst all the chaos, I ate a croissant this morning and actually forced myself to sit and savor the taste of it, the crunch of it, the taste of it, the texture, and to just enjoy the food in my mouth before I swallow it. And I never do that. No, I'm sure most people like that. Just don't do it. Just quickly get the food down. It might taste nice, but you're eating it quickly and it's gone. And just taking the time to actually enjoy things like that you do on a daily basis, live in the moment, right now, forget everything else. And I personally think in my lifetime, there has been no simpler time than now in terms of being able to do that. Because I'm like a serial box ticker. I organize my life by calendar. Everything is calendar driven, and I need to have an agenda. I need to know what's coming up this week, next week. Drives my wife later nuts, but it's just the way it's my way of trying to keep, just in check mentally. And it scares me now. I look at my calendar, I go, there's nothing next week. Okay, next week is nothing at all. Just nothing. It's nothing at all. I said to Leda today, do you know probably the next most definite thing we have is Christmas. We don't even know what we're gonna. But do you know what I mean? It's like, what's the next milestone? What's the next thing? And I think a lot of athletes who might be listening to this will chime with that, because in terms of their sporting life, a lot of them will be thinking about what is their next race they're doing. So now we're stripped back to the point where we don't have any races. I know most sports are kind of so like in cycling where we work, it's up until the end of June the 30th or whatever it is. At the moment, everything is cancelled, including coaching. You're not even allowed to coach like face to face, obviously, in that time or anything like that. But actually, there's still so much uncertainty beyond that you just have no landmarks coming up. So that there literally has not been a better time to do the 3 things which I tell a lot of our athletes all the time. 3 so simple words: be here now, right here. Just being here, not thinking what's what happened before, not thinking about what I just said because that's gone now, not thinking ahead to what's happening tomorrow and worrying about that, but just centering yourself in one place.
Yeah.
And I'm the only reason I say that is because I'm bad at it. So I have to keep coaching myself to try and do it more, because I find when I do it, I get so much more out of myself. And there's no better time to do that than now.
I completely agree. It's almost, I would class that as mindfulness, isn't it? It's being present. And similar to yourself, that's something that I struggle with. I can think about, even in this interview, you know, the next question, the things we've said, how we might edit it, and so on, and all that kind of thing. But actually, it's really helping me mentally to stay engaged with everyone that's talking, because I actually have to listen to what you guys say to then think about the next question that I'm going to. Yeah. I mean, worst case scenario, I've got a bunch of questions sat there. But no, it's really interesting. So if you were to give some top tips for people during this time to stay physically and mentally healthy, off the back of what you've just said, what would say those, maybe the top 3 tips that you would give them? Or if you really, you know, are struggling, just the top tip.
I've actually written some down because you prepared me very well, Ian, but I've now got to, it's getting late in the day here. It's been a long day. Yeah. So yeah, my number one physical tip for this period of time is to have lots of days where you don't train, but you still go out or stay in or whatever and exercise. Have some, not even exercise, sorry. You get out and your feet move beneath you, or whether that's pedaling or running, or if you have you might have a endless pool in your garden, whatever it is, yeah. Have some time where you are exercising but not training. And actually, if you're really good at it and you really want to enjoy this period, you need to have some days where you have exploring days. So a really good way to do it is to put on some trail shoes, for instance, and say, I've never actually been through that sort of thicket that goes off the edge of the farmland 2 miles away from where I live. Chances are there'll be no one else there. You'll be miles away from everyone else. As long as you let people know where you're going and you're safe about doing it, I think it's a golden opportunity to, again, live in the moment. It really is it's sort of mindful exercise in that you go and explore, and you like this week, the next 2 weeks is when all the bluebells start coming out in England where we are. And it's a chance I would really strongly encourage people to just use the time to exercise without having the structure of physically having to train. However, there will always be people who want to be pushing themselves more and actually who crave that endorphin kick from pushing yourself really hard. So, you know, if that's you, I still would be encouraging people to get out, particularly because the forecast for the next week or so is really good. It's one piece of exercise a day. That's the recommendation we've been given by the government. And my advice always is to follow that. In fact, it's not just advice, just do it. Follow it exactly. You know, it's more than enough time to get out and enjoy yourself. But I would still try and, if you want to do something structured, try and structure it around natural things. So rather than timing yourself, get away from your watch or your GPS or your Garmin or whatever you use. If you want to run a series of, say, intervals or something, just look up the road ahead of you and accept that you're going to run hard or ride hard to the next tree or to the next lamppost and then rest in between and then see another visual cue. So try and take your, if you like, your timing cues from the natural environment around you, because then you're more likely to notice it and appreciate it as well. I'm all about trying to get people to reconnect with their surroundings rather than connecting with apps and, you know, phones and watches and things, because nature can give you the physical and visual cues to help you structure a training session in the moment without you having to worry about it and plan it and tabulate it. But if you're a spreadsheet person and a tabulator and someone needs to write everything down, all I can say is, and this is again me showing my age, right? I'm quite old school as both a coach and an athlete and everything, but no amount of tabulating, no amount of number crunching will help you get any more out of that session. It will not add a physiological squat, not in the physical sense. It will add nothing to what you've actually done. If you can learn something from it by number crunching and what have you and looking at next time, but mulling over the numbers, recording it, writing it down, it will not help you get any more out of the training session you've just done. So try and release some of those things. If that's become an addiction for people, I would encourage them to release some of those things and strip it back to engaging with your visual local environment and using some of that as your stimuli for training. And if that means going off-road, do it. Get off the road.
Right.
Get away from, get properly away from it. Because I'm quite lucky. I mean, some people live in very busy, built-up areas, but they're insisting on going out for their daily run or going out on the bike and are surrounded by other people. There's always usually other ways you can do it to get away from it all. Yeah, I can't speak for everyone, but that would be my advice. I mean, on the mental side, kind of the mental stuff is tied into the physical as well. So physically and kind of conceptually, stopping and smelling the flowers right now is really important. I think just finding time to actually get away from it all when you're out exercising, or just when you're going out for a walk or something, you know, slowing down things so you appreciate them, because not everyone, but most people are finding they've just got more time to do things now. So I would encourage people from a mental perspective not to sort of do more because they've got longer time, but instead to string out what they're doing and enjoy it more. Yeah. You know, there's a saying, isn't there? Don't ask how much, what's the saying? How much time there is in your life. Instead, ask yourself how much life there is in your time. Is that right? It's something like that, isn't it?
That's a golden nugget right there.
Don't ask how much time there is in your life. Instead, ask how much life there is in your time. That's it. I have no idea who said that. It wasn't me. I can tell you that much.
It's going to be Jez Cox 2020.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not. Trust me. I think it's been said by lots of people. It was probably Muhammad Ali, because he's got all the best quotes. Him or Michael Jordan. Anyway, the other thing I would encourage people to do is to do a bit of a life audit. So just not a pin in the ground where we are now. And do a bit of a life audit, and incorporated within that, I would recommend doing a bit of if you're an athlete. By the way, athlete is I define it as a person looking to improve their physical capacity, right? So if you go running every day and you're trying to lose weight, you're an athlete. Accept it. Yeah. People don't like me calling them athletes. They are. If that's what you're doing, the dictionary definition is that you are an athlete, a person looking to improve their physical capacity by doing exercise or training. You know.
Absolutely.
So, I would say do a whole life audit and try and break down what you're doing currently, and think about what you don't need to be doing anymore. What is it that's making you feel better about this lockdown, maybe, that you're missing or you're not involved with at work? If you're in a job you absolutely hate and you have the means to change it, for goodness sake, change it. You know, don't be. I genuinely mean that. I speak as someone who, I'm very lucky. I say lucky. I made a decision a long time ago that I would only want to work in something I am really passionate about. So trying to create a realm for myself where I don't feel like I work. I get paid for doing what I love. Now, not everyone can do that. And if we all did it, the country would probably crash. But there are many people who could be doing that, but are held back by a desire to earn more money, you know.
Sure.
And so end up doing a bit of a life audit, looking at what you'd like to change is a good way of doing it. I use an app called, I've got to think of the name of it now. It's really useful. I find it it won't work for everyone, but I find it particularly. I just look it up on my phone now. I have no ties to this company, by the way, but I find it really It's called Simple Mind, and I use the pro version. It's a really simple app. There's a free version as well that works perfectly well. It is a mind mapping app, okay? It basically enables you to create little bubbles. So you start with a bubble in the middle that just simply says, my life. And then the next level of bubbles going off it might be faith, sport, work, relationships, family, and spread out from there. And it helps me anyway, to zoom out, look at the big picture and go, okay, that's everything that's happening with me right now. Which are the areas that don't, and the area that's stressing you out, you can color red and go, all right, what am I going to do with that area to try and flip it and change things? Because there's probably no better time to do that than now. I'm speaking as if I've got this sort of enlightened solution to every problem I have, but that helps. It helps me, and it's not a definitive thing. It's a progressive thing, which is ongoing. You have to keep revisiting it and adding bits and chopping bits out. And it might be you come back to your life audit in 6 months' time and go, oh my gosh, I didn't realize how much things have changed since then. I used to be worried about. So yeah, Simple Mind, really useful. I would definitely recommend downloading that in this time and seeing if you can simplify things a bit, because they should be simplified at the moment if we're getting it right, you know?
Yeah. No, that's incredible advice, Jez. Like, thank you for those top tips. I really appreciate that.
That's all right.
That's the end of my questions for now. So I just wanted to thank you very much for joining us today. And
right.
yeah, so guys, I just want you to know that we've got some more talks coming up with some different athletes and people that support those athletes. So do stay tuned. Jez, before we go, have you got any businesses that you run, or obviously you've got a coaching academy that you want to plug? Do you just want to list those off for us now?
Yeah, absolutely. So at the moment, we can't take on any new athletes into our cycling academy at the moment, but I can tell you about it. It's called Oakland's Wolves Cycling Academy, based at Oakland's College in St Albans. Just Google it, you'll find loads of info on what we do and how it operates as well. It's a junior racing academy for 16 to 18-year-olds. It's selective, so we have trials to get into it. But there's loads of information online on that one. Outside of that, as I say, I work for myself as a race commentator. So if there's any race organisers watching that fancy me fronting up their work and organising the event for them on the mic and that kind of thing, then you can easily connect with me through jezcox.com. At the moment, I have all the events I was supposed to be doing this year have been cancelled at the moment. So I was supposed to be doing this coming month tour series, then the women's tour to Yorkshire, all live on the mic, and of course they're not happening. So I've got fingers crossed for things later in the season. I guess the next big thing that I've got still in the diary would be a tour of Britain, but that's September. But we'll see what happens, and I'm hoping to be on Eurosport over the summer as well on TV. But again, everything is off at the moment, so I'm very lucky in a way. Although I mentioned to you earlier, Ian, about how I've got loads of plates spinning, and sometimes it can be a bit like, why am I doing so many different things? Actually, at a time like this, I'm very lucky because I have a lot of friends in the events industry who are totally without money at the moment. I've got close friends who are, full-time commentators, and that's it. They have no other, so they're literally having to find other ways of making money because they're working for themselves, they're self-employed. Anyone in our, we're very lucky. We're involved with events. Regularly. The event organisers and the people who put those events on, I hope will still be around in the months to come, because it's a really tough time for them. If that's you guys, if you're watching this, you're one of those people involved in working in events, big up yourselves, hang in there, because we need you the other side of this. And I hope we can kind of pull together a bit as a sports community to help them. I really do.
No, that's great. Thank you very much, Jez. And again, thank you for joining us today. That's all for today, folks. Thanks very much for joining us. Take care.